And I'm thinking to myself, I have no idea how much these cost, but this looks really cool. This is legitimately about to be the WrestleMania. And I get to go to this? That was absolutely pointing to something that, whether you believe it or not, was going to shape up to be one of the most memorable, if not the greatest WrestleMania in the history of WrestleManias. This is the Lariat Lounge. I'm Everson, your host, and I would like to share with you my WrestleMania experience. It was fun. I had a really great time. And if you've never got to go yourself, this is a good insight into what an event like that actually looks and feels like. You can catch this podcast every week on iTunes. Where else are we at? Because we're pretty much everywhere now. iHeartRadio, Spotify. I need to get the Spreaker account set up, but that's coming soon. But honestly, anywhere you listen to your podcast, Google, Amazon, we're pretty much everywhere right now. But the official launch for this podcast is the 25th. That is next Friday. But I'm recording a few bonus episodes, including episode 1 and this one, episode 2, so that when this launches, you'll have some stuff to listen to. But we're going to go over my WrestleMania experience. It was really an incredible experience that legitimately came out of nowhere. I was at my house watching WrestleMania 39. It was a great pay-per-view. Cody lost to Roman, and this was the big finish the story year. So, after that went off, everyone is really looking forward to what comes next, and we're all tuning in to the Raw after Mania and the PLEs that follow Mania. I scoured the internet for people who are talking about the events that I'm interested in. I am a huge storyline person, right? So there are people who are really big sticklers on the mechanics of a match, and that's great. Me, I'm a big storyline person, man. I grew up reading comic books, and so there are through lines within through lines that cross over to different issues and different books and different titles and imprints. And sometimes these stories connect, sometimes they don't, but they oftentimes will lead up to and culminate in these big events, right? And these big comic book events are sometimes used as a big reset point for a particular brand, or it can be used to tie up a whole lot of loose ends, restart new things. But they're these big ultimate events that happen that have all of these storylines that are all pulling together into this big story that you just can't miss. And the outcome of these stories have ramifications that last for a very long time. They are the moments that we as comic book readers remember and we talk about often. So the storyline for the Bloodline in WWE had really been the backbone of WWE programming. Triple H and his storytelling regime were really doing a good job, man. And they really did an incredible job of making this Bloodline story with Roman, Heyman, the Usos, Sammy, and Solo, really the big reason why people were talking about wrestling again. And Cody's return to WWE was a story in and of itself. And you had all of these stories from branching arcs with the Bloodline, with Cody's whole story with leaving WWE, going back onto the indies, rebuilding himself from the ground up, from his look, aspects of his wrestling style to his entrance theme, going all around the world from the States to Japan and back again. All of the things that happen in AEW with the Codyverse and how the fans turned on Cody there, and him making his return to WWE truly felt like a homecoming. And his return to WWE programming offered a really great and interesting plot point in the Bloodline story arc. You finally had this hero, if I'm looking at this from a comic book perspective, because I'm a comic book nerd. You have the hero who's coming in And he is now positioned as the front runner to topple the despot that is Roman Reigns. And he fails at WrestleMania 39. I remember looking at the story thinking, this is just great storytelling. I had my thoughts on what could happen in the events moving forward, but oftentimes, man, my mind is not even wrapped up in those things. I enjoy being a fan. I enjoy being a fan of the product. I enjoy great stories. I enjoy character building. And so these things only lend to the story that you can tell. If you don't get the payoff now, if you trust the people telling the story, then trust that the payoff that you're going to get is going to absolutely supplant what you could have gotten had you received your gift today. So my friends at Ring Rust Radio had the grand idea to attend WrestleMania 40. WrestleMania 40 was in Philadelphia. One of the hosts from the podcast is from Philadelphia. So they had coordinated with a listener on the show, and he does event planning. Next thing I know, I'm listening to the podcast and they're discussing WrestleMania 40 and going to WrestleMania 40, and that they were interested in seeing who wanted to come on board because they wanted to buy tickets in one of the skyboxes. I forget the name of the arena that WrestleMania 40 was at off the top of my head, but I remember hearing about this and pulling it up online and looking at these skyboxes, and the pictures were amazing. And I'm thinking to myself, I have no idea how much these cost, but this looks really cool. And I told my wife what it is I wanted to do. I told my wife that I would like to try and do this if I could. And the household that I grew up in as a child, I was always conditioned to have my story straight before I came to ask my father anything. So, you raise a child up in the way that they should go according to you, and hopefully they will not part from it. I'm one of those people. So I had thought about this thing in my head over and over and over again before I went and told my wife what I wanted to do. And I sat down with her and I began to explain to her why I wanted to go, about how I've been a lifelong fan, as you know, hon, and I really want to have this experience before. And before I could even finish, my wife was like, if this is something you want to do, then I want you to do it. Let's see how much it will cost and we'll budget for it and we'll see about making it happen. I said, cool. Now, I'm not the type of person who gets excited for things too soon. I've done that way too many times in my life, and things don't particularly happen the way you want them to all the time. So you kind of learn to reserve your excitement for when things are within your grasp. And so I said, cool, we'll figure out the cost of this, including travel, lodging, food, how much the tickets are going to cost, how much the suite is going to cost, and we'll go from there. So in the episodes that followed after the announcement from Ring Rust, we find out how much the tickets for the suite are going to cost. And they ended up costing about $1,000 each. And I want to say there was maybe, I don't know. If I had to guess, I want to say there may have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm counting seats in my head just off of my memory of this suite. There had to have been at least 6, 12, 18. There might have been at the most 18 people, just if I'm counting seats, of people who were in that suite. So if you do the math, you know what I'm saying? If you do the math, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for these suites. So this was quite an endeavor that any one person can do. I'm not rich. Me and my wife both work. We make okay money. We're squarely in the middle class. And so that's a large ask, man. And so at the time when I found out what that cost was, and I just kind of looked at our finances I had already put down a deposit, but after talking with my wife, I tried to make the pragmatic decision and that, I'm just not going to go. I feel like what we have to do savings wise was going to be difficult. At the time, our dog, who has since passed, had some form of cancer, and we were actively in the process of paying for medications and surgery. And, we were preparing to have her go through rounds of chemo, and, things were just expensive. They were expensive already. So it seemed like the more reasonable, responsible decision would be for me to just, reach out, let them know, hey, I appreciate it. I'm just going to get my deposit back, and, you can open up my seat for someone else who can go. And it sucked, but I was okay with it because I had already prepared myself for the bottom to fall out of something. That's why you don't get excited so early. So I had reached out, and when I got with the coordinator, he told me that, hey man, that deposit that you gave has already been collected and sent in to secure the suite. So it's kind of locked in. The best that he could do was open my seat back up to the audience of the show. And if somebody else wanted to go, they could pay the money for the deposit, and I'll get my deposit back, and that money could go into the place of, my deposit, and however he worked that out, and I would be good. So I told him, okay. And, I talked with my wife, and she really wanted me to go. She really wanted me to have this experience. She knows that I'm a huge wrestling fan, and this type of opportunity does not come to everyone. There's nothing special about me, but I happen to be in the right place with the right group of people. WrestleMania was in the town of one of the hosts of this podcast, and they were going. And this experience in particular, going to this event in a suite, like, who gets to do that? So she convinced me to reach back out and tell them we'll do it. I want to say something might have come through on our finances as well that probably aided in making that decision. Some of this is kind of foggy to me. I am certainly not the financial guru in my family. That is squarely my wife. So, when she tells me that we're good for something financially, I say, word, gotcha. And I just go and make the things happen with how the money gets spent. But she is definitely the banker. So I reached back out, and my seat was still available. And so I reached out to the coordinator, and I told him, I said, hey, we're good. You don't have to, you don't have to try and give my seat away. I will have the money that I need, because there was an installment plan that he was working with me on. And so, I got the last payment in. By this time, it was around the fall of 23 was when we had the all the money in. And tickets went on sale for Mania 40 late in the fall of 23. Yeah, late in the fall of 23. Now, I want to say those tickets officially go on sale as far as your standard seats. Those usually go on sale around the start of January, right before the Rumble and stuff like that. But our friend is an event coordinator, and I'm assuming he might have gone through his business or something. I don't know what, I met all of these people when I got to Philly, but I didn't spend a whole bunch of time asking a bunch of questions about the logistics and, how you and your business pulled this off. This is your business. This is what you do. So, okay, I'm not asking questions. I'm just being a customer right now. So we get the money in, we get the word that the suite has been locked in, right? So at this point, I'm starting to get a little excited. We've been putting money away. My wife has been setting some things aside for us in our budget so that I can, finance this trip. So we're going through flights and rental cars and all of this. And this stuff is just so expensive. And whenever you're traveling anywhere around like these big events, the best course of action is to start shopping early. Start shopping for your flights if you're going to fly, or your rental cars, if you're going to drive there, or even if you get in the city and you want to have transportation of your own, get your rental car scheduled early. Even if you have to make changes to it later, get it on the books early because you lock that price in. Because everything skyrockets around large events because these people are not stupid and they know how to make money. So we waited probably a bit too late for WrestleMania. And so I'm looking around and I'm looking at the flights, and the flights were stupid expensive. So, I'm just like, okay, I can't fly. That's not going to happen. And what I'm not about to do is drive. I'm not about to drive to Philly. I don't want to. If I had to, that would have been what it was, but I don't want to. My mind immediately went to taking the train. So I looked at the prices for the train. They were still expensive, but nowhere near as expensive as the plane. So train was what it was. Also, I never rode on a train before. So this was going to be another novel experience, along with the fact that I had never been to Philadelphia before. So now I got these two things that I've never done, along with WrestleMania that I've never done. So I have my train. My wife books me a hotel, and the hotel is minutes from the stadium. I wish I could remember the name of the stadium, but anyway. So we get all this stuff booked, Rumble time comes around. Cody wins the Rumble again. Now, at that point, I think all of us wrestling fans already knew that Cody was going to win. There was a lot of stuff that was going on in the air, right? And so Cody wins, and then the stuff happens afterwards with The Rock. And whether or not you believe that the build up to Mania 40 was a well-orchestrated event that was made to look like the disarray that it was, or if you believe that the disarray was real and that WWE made a freaking NBA 2K grade pivot. The show build was incredible. The hype could not have been bigger. That was a grand event that was absolutely pointing to something that, whether you believe it or not, was going to shape up to be one of the most memorable, if not the greatest WrestleMania in the history of WrestleManias. There had not been a storyline like the Bloodline storyline that had ever been told in the WWE. The writers were on their game. That story was incredible. The fans were invested. Roman had built himself to be the guy to beat, a champion the likes of which we are not going to see in the WWE for a very long time. Okay? Cody is the guy to go up against Roman for a second time. This was building itself up to be the greatest WrestleMania ever. So now I'm starting to really get super hype, not just as a fan of the product, not just as someone who is a fan of incredible storytelling, a fan of great characters, but the fact that this is legitimately about to be the WrestleMania and I get to go to this, and I'm going to go in a suite with a bunch of people that over the years I have grown to know as podcast hosts that I like to listen to personalities that I've grown accustomed to sharing in on the podcast, calling in, doing events and programs with them. It was just this progression that even on the small level that it was, it's these little things in life that are just the spice that makes things great. And I think for me, that's when I started to kind of get really excited about Mania. And I remember the week before I was supposed to go to Mania was when it really hit me that I was actually going to go. I was actually going to be a part of this. And WWE, for whatever criticism you may have of them, they do an incredible job of their promo packages, of hyping up these big events, all of the interviews that happen. They're just incredible. They do an incredible job of making you feel the grand nature of these things. And I was feeling it. I feel it every year because I just love wrestling and I just love the WWE and I just love the product that they produce. You know, when it's not great, I'm still there. I complain and I enjoy things, right? And when it's great, I enjoy it too. I follow these stories when they're awesome and when they're not. So being able to go to this about a week prior to me going, I'm getting really excited. And I'm thinking about my grandmother because she's the person who got me into wrestling when I was a little boy, watching Saturday Night's Main Event at her house and watching Ricky Steamboat and Randy Savage. Like, I was hooked, man. I was hooked. And I've been watching regularly ever since. And my grandmother passed away years ago, but I know she would have thought that this was the coolest thing ever. And so, you know, I'm getting really hype and I just keep thinking to myself, man, I want to make these memories. The thing I need to really make this thing the memory that I want is a championship belt. I really want a championship belt. I wanted to have a championship belt that I could take to the suite for both nights of Mania and have everyone in the suite sign the inside of the belt with like a silver paint pen. And then I would take this thing home, I would put it on a shelf, and it would be this constant reminder of, you know, my time at Mania. And I was going to do it because I'm like, hey, man, when am I going to do Mania again? Which honestly, I hope we do it again soon because it was fun. Maybe Mania 42. But I'm looking online at these belts now like a doofus a week before we go to Mania, thinking, yeah, I'm going to find something. I can buy a belt and, you know, go get it. First of all, there was nothing in my area of Virginia that was close enough for me to just go and get. Everybody was selling their knockoff versions of championship belts. And I'd never gone online really to go and look at these things because I've always wanted one, but I just never went to go purchase one. But now I'm looking at the prices of these things, right? You can forget looking at the official website, right? Because for one, obviously, it's not going to get to me in the week prior to going to WrestleMania. But even if it did, even if there was overnight shipping, like it had an Amazon Prime account or something, the prices were nuts. The prices were crazy. And, you know, I've already put forth $1,000 just to get into part of the suite. I've already put aside money for my food, money for some entertainment, and I've already booked a hotel room for 2 nights in Philly, not far from the stadium. You know what I mean? Like, I'm already spending money. Also, when I got back from Mania, my wife and I were going out of the country. We were going to Europe for a week. We were going to Germany and Paris. So that was money, right? So we were already tapped on the money. So the idea that I was going to try and squeeze out any additional money was already an ask, but these prices were ridiculous. So I was, okay, you know what? What I'll do is when I get to Philly, I'm sure I can find like a scalper or something because people are always trying to sell stuff and make a quick buck. I'm sure I'll find a scalper that's selling a belt of some kind. At that point, I didn't care what it was. I didn't care what belt it was. You could have sold me a Cena spinner belt, and I would have bought that. But anyway, so suffice it to say, there was no belt purchase before I left for Philly. But didn't change anything. I was still hyped, man. I'm going to Mania. So Thursday comes around and I take the day off from work on Friday. No, I think I worked maybe like a half day. I think I worked a half day. I think I was working from home at the time and I was working early in that day. So I think I started work at like 5 a.m. and I got off at around 9 a.m. and got everything together. My wife took me to the train station. It was a long train ride. I can't remember exactly how many hours that train ride was, but it was long. So I'd never been on a train before. In my mind, I don't know why when I thought about this train, I thought about dark wood. I thought about like these train cars from these movies where, you know, I'm sitting in a train car and there's room for me to put my bag. And then, you know, based on the description about the train, There was a train car where you can get food and drinks if you want it. Now, I don't drink and I don't smoke. So, I'm like, okay, I don't need a smoking car. And I'm certainly not going to be buying drinks, but it's cool that they have this car that you can buy food. I'm going to get some nice food on this train ride, relax and stuff. I don't know what I was thinking, but I get to the train station, and when we pull up to the train station, I see it, and I'm thinking, A, this is not what I was expecting, and B, this is exactly what I should have expected. It's just a form of transportation, like going to any basic airport. There are some airports that you go to that are grand. You know what I mean? Some airports are really top of the line, big, sprawling, beautiful airports. And then you have airports that are not great, and they're just an airport. They're just a place where planes land and fly off, and they've got terminals and people that work there. And this is what this train station was. It looked like it was a stop that train stopped at, and that's pretty much it. And the train was a regular Amtrak train. It was like being on a regular airplane, which was fine. I didn't need like a luxury experience, but I hop on the train and I kiss my wife bye. Well, I kiss my wife bye and then I hop on the train because that's how, the order of events happen. And, I get on the train and it's cool. I'm not sitting next to anyone. I've got an assigned seat. And, the train operator lets us know that, hey, don't get comfortable with that seat next to you because we're going to be making a couple stops and there are going to be people that are going to be getting on and off at different train stations. Make sure you are in your seat when it's time for the train to pull off because the train will leave without you, right? I was already in my seat. You ain't gotta worry about that with me. And I'm not getting up and leaving this train until we get to Philly. So we're going to Philly. The train makes a couple stops. One dude gets left, which, I guess he didn't pay attention to the announcement because we stopped at one point because they had to switch the engine car over. Something about one of the engine cars ran on one type of fuel and the other engine car had a different type of engine that ran on a different type of fuel. So they switched the engine car out at one of the stations. And so we were there a little bit longer than normal. Some people got off, but like everything that we needed was right on the train, so if you need to grab a little snack or something, it was right there. You could use the restrooms if you needed to. You can get up and stretch your legs for a little bit of time we were there. You didn't need to leave the train, but some people did. And that's fine as long as you were back. Well, that train was supposed to leave at a certain time and that train was pulling off as that dude was running back to the train. Trust me, that train did not slow down to let him back on. He missed his train. I'm sorry for you. I hope he had his phone, but that was crazy. But, I guess these trains are going to be on time. So I get into Philly. It's nighttime. I catch an Uber from the train station to my hotel. Now, the train station in Philly was incredible. That's a beautiful train station. I don't remember what that train station is, but it's incredibly immaculate and beautiful. And it's definitely the type of train station that a lot of people go to travel all around the East Coast. It just gets a lot of traffic. If I knew the name of it, I'd tell you right now because it's a famous train station and there's probably people listening right now who know exactly what I'm talking about. But so I get this train station, I get picked up, I'm taken to my hotel room, and Ring Rust is having a meetup at this bar / bowling alley place. So I go to my room. I let my wife know about the train ride, that I'm here. I'm about to go and meet up with some of the people at this bar and hangout spot. And I catch a different Uber. So I call for another Uber to come pick me up and I go out there, meet up with everyone. It's cool, man. Like I get to hang out with all of the hosts from the show and a lot of the fans who like myself are coming to WrestleMania and to hang out together. And that was an incredible experience just to meet all of these people that you have gotten to know over the years. Put faces to names, and these voices that you become familiar with who have almost become characters on the show in and of themselves. You get to see who these people are. And, I had a great experience just hanging out with them that night. So I meet everyone and I head back to my room for the night. gonna go ahead and go to bed because WrestleMania Saturday is the next day. And we've got NXT and we have WrestleMania Night 1. And there's a lot of stuff that I wanted to do in Philly while I was there. Now, they had a bit of an itinerary. The Ring Rust guys had an itinerary for us and what we could do out there in Philly. But the main things were WrestleMania World was out there. If you could pay to go to WrestleMania World, that was something great that you could do. Hang out there, see all the sights, take pictures, get autographs, all the stuff that WrestleMania World has to offer. But there are a lot of indie promotions that come into town when WrestleMania is there, and they take advantage of the crowds that are there because there are a lot of wrestling fans that want to take in a lot of wrestling. So there were a lot of wrestling events that were happening around Philly. I know there was I remember Donnie went to Kaiju Big Battle, and myself, Mike, and BG. These are Mike, BG, and Donnie are the hosts of Ring Rust Radio. We all went to, myself, Mike, and BG went to NXT Stand and Deliver, along with some other fans of the show. And we just had a really good time, man. NXT Stand and Deliver was awesome. It was cool to see that live. That was at the Wells Fargo Center. I do remember that. Was it Lincoln Financial? I think it's Lincoln Financial Field. I think that's what I think that's where Mania was, Lincoln Financial Field. We'll go with that for now. If I'm wrong, then I'll be saying it wrong for the rest of the podcast. But that was cool, right? Mania Night 1 was later on that evening. So after we got out of NXT, we had some time to kill. So I remember two things were on my mind. Three things. One, I was hungry, and the food that I got at NXT Stand and Deliver was fine, but it wasn't all that great. Two, I was still on the hunt for a championship belt, and I had not put my eyes on one yet. And three, we were told that Ric Flair was going to be at some venue that was right there in between Lincoln Financial and Wells Fargo. I can't remember what that venue was, but it's like a restaurant, nice bar. It's got upstairs, downstairs, and Ric Flair was going to be there. So I remember going to see if we could see Ric Flair. And man, look, two things. One, that spot was packed. Everybody knew Flair was going to be there. And because they knew he was going to be there, that place was jam-packed full of people. The second thing, Ric Flair. Look, I saw him from a distance. I never got close. He was upstairs. I was downstairs. I'd never tried to get upstairs. But he was upstairs, and he was just telling some of the wildest stories, man. And listen, he's a legend. You love him or hate him, he's Ric Flair. But I remember just thinking to myself, dude, if that was my dad and he was famous and he was up there telling these stories and talking with some of these female patrons that were up there, the way he was talking with them, I would have just been embarrassed. He didn't say anything inappropriate, but it was just like, ugh. I remember just thinking, I don't need to stay for this. I mean, I've seen the guy. Cool. But okay, so let's get to the good stuff. So WrestleMania Night 1's about to start. Let me just preface by saying this. WrestleMania Night 1 was freaking cold. It was cold in Philly that night. I'm going into Mania. I'm taking a bunch of pictures. There are so many people. I've never seen that many people in one place before for one event in my life. But it was so many people there. But it was so cold. So we're walking around in Lincoln Financial, around the concessions area, because everybody's going to, find their seats where they need to go, et cetera, et cetera. So me and one of my friends, James, who, is a fan of the show, I met him there. Great guy. And we're looking for the pathway to get up to the suites. And after a lot of looking, we find this elevator that has this long line that takes us up to the suites. So I'm thinking to myself, we'll get up here in time. Obviously, nothing's going to be missed. I didn't realize that the suites were like the suites. These suites were where everyone who is anyone is watching WrestleMania. When I tell you this is the way to go, if you can, because this is how the big boys go to watch Mania. And when I say that, I literally mean that. This is where the celebrities go to watch these events. This is where the wrestlers go to watch these events. We saw Kevin Owens up there. We saw Drew McIntyre up there. We saw Scott Steiner up there. There was the suite that was next to us, I believe, was housing quite a few wrestlers. We just did not get to see in that suite because obviously that was not ours. But we get into our suite. WrestleMania is starting. You know, it's incredible. And it was cold. And the front of the suite had glass across the entire front of the suite, right? And the glass could slide so you could open it up. You can catch the breeze if you want to. And there were people who wanted to have that glass open. They wanted to have the breeze come in, the full experience. I would have been fine with that if it wasn't so daggone cold that night. But it was cold and the wind was slightly blowing. You know, it did not matter how much heat was in that suite, right? And the suite was pretty deep. Like the seating in the front of the suite was about 6 rows deep. And there were maybe 6 to 7 seats on each row, right? So there was plenty of seating for everyone. But behind those seats was a whole lounge area with couches, a refrigerator, countertops, a sink, private bathroom. I mean, this is where you go to hang out and watch these types of events. But, you know, we're all a bunch of regular normies, so we don't do this very often. So we get in there night one. It's freezing cold, right? We're in there watching Mania night one, and it's just a bare bones setup. Now, we learned and got smarter for night two, but night one was fun. It just was freaking cold. We should have closed those windows. But I head back to my room afterwards. Parking sucked. We were supposed to have private parking that allowed us to access the exterior entryway to the suites, or the stairwell to the suites. But something happened with where WWE was supposed to be bringing in some of their trucks and buses and things to, you know, do things in the stadium, I guess, structure items for their setup. Anyway, those trucks ended up getting parked right in these private spots. So we never got to actually utilize the private parking. So we just had to park in the regular parking, which was oh my gosh, regular parking was a pain. It was such a pain. Night one, James and I parked in like the most common of parking spaces because we got out there a little early and people were tailgating and, you know, whatnot. So we hung out and stuff like that. But leaving out of that spot was a nightmare. I mean, I don't remember exactly when the show ended on night one, but I know it was around 11-ish. And we did not get back to the hotel till after 1. The parking just moved so slow. And mind you, we were not far from the stadium at all. It had to have been maybe 10 minutes. So, you know, you can do the math, but it was bad. Night two, way better. So night two, there was less on the docket because a lot of stuff had happened on Saturday. So Sunday, kind of got to sleep in a little bit, you know, got up with the homie James and we went out to some of the local spots in Philly, had some good food. You know, got to do a little shopping. And then we met up with Donnie and Mike and BG and the rest of the Ring Rust crew at Donnie's van. The parking lot for Wells Fargo Arena, which the day before was full of people and full of parked cars because of NXT Stand and Deliver. A lot of the people who parked there for NXT just left their cars parked there and they walked across the street to Lincoln Financial for WrestleMania. But those cars were gone on Sunday. So that parking lot, for the most part, was filling up rather slowly. So, and mind you, there were some people there who did not go to every event. Some people did not go to Mania, but they went to NXT. Some people went to NXT. Some people went to Mania, not NXT. And some people went to NXT and not Mania. Some people only went to night one of Mania. Some people only went to night two. And then there were some people like myself who went to all three. But all that to say, the parking lot for Wells Fargo Arena on night two was not nearly as full. So I met everybody out there, man. And, you know, shout out to Donnie. He just went and got all of his food from these local spots in Philly and just filled his van with all kinds of food and beverages, and we just kind of sat out there with folding chairs until Mania started. And we just ate food and we drank and we laughed and talked and got to know each other, man. And it was such a great time. And it was such a great way to go into WrestleMania. It was such a great way to go into WrestleMania. And so, afterwards, it's time to start heading across the street into Lincoln Financial. Somehow, I don't know how this happened, but the group ends up getting split up. I'm with Mike and BG and a couple of other people. And Donnie went one way, and with some other folks, I don't know where they went. Thank the Lord we all ended up back in the suite, because that was a concern at one point. But we're going into Lincoln Financial, and there it is, standing right at the gate. There's a guy selling a WWE Championship belt. Yes. Maybe I didn't get it for night one, but here it is for night two, man. Like, I'm going to do it. I know he's about to try and rip my head off with this price, but if this price is not outside of stupidity ranges of money, I'm going to buy this belt, and I'm going to live my dream of having my new friends sign the back of my belt so I can sit it on my mantle at home and reminisce for all time. Walk across to this man, confirm first that he's actually selling this thing. He says, yeah. I asked him, hey, do you mind if I hold it? He was a little hesitant. That was the first sign, okay? He was hesitant that I hold the product. Now, I understand if you think maybe that, hey, this dude could grab my belt and take off and run. But where am I going to go? There are thousands of people out here, tons of security around, police everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no way. I'm not going anywhere, man. The only other reason you don't want me to hold this belt is because you know that when I hold this belt, something ain't going to feel right. You know that when I put my hands on this belt and you relinquish your hands and the weight falls into my hands, the math ain't going to be mathing. So he reluctantly lets me hold it after I let him know that, man, I'm genuinely interested in buying a belt. So I hold this belt. Oh, man, the weight was a little off. It did not feel right. And listen, I'm not that dude. Like, I'm weighing it in my right hand and I'm just like, well, the actual title weighs exactly this many ounces. And no, but I could tell by the feel of the strap, the metallics on the belt didn't look quite right. This was absolutely positively 100% a knockoff. And I'm not saying that you got to get your belt exactly from the authorized replica dealer, but it was too many things that were off about this belt to justify what he was asking for it. And he was asking like $300. And so listen, that was cheaper than a lot of the belts I saw online. And mind you, I looked way too late. If you want to buy yourself a championship belt and you want to get it for cheap, look, WrestleMania is this weekend. Go shop for your belt next weekend. I guarantee you're going to have a lot of people who stocked up on some high quality replicas that they did not sell, and they're either going to hoard them for next year or they're going to offboard them. Okay. And particularly if you're watching wrestling as a fan and you notice that a belt design changes after Mania, shop for your belts then. It may not be the most current design, right? But oftentimes the people who are not fans of wrestling but who sell belts, they don't keep up with stuff like that. It's out of date now to them. And so you'll find the price a bit cheaper. But at the time I was looking for belts, it was right before Mania. This is stupid belt hunting season for me. So this price was significantly cheaper than what it is that I had seen online. But I knew, A, I was going out of the country, in a span of a couple months. B, I was got to put this on my credit card. And C, it just did not feel right in my hands. And so I had to let that dream go, right? But it was okay because I'm going into night 2 of Mania, right? So night 1 of Mania, The Rock and Roman Reigns beat Cody and Seth. So it was bloodline rules, okay? The Rock's entrance at night 1, by the way, chef's kiss. That was an amazing entrance, okay? The final boss is a great character. It's just a shame we didn't see more of him this year, leading to the build-up of 41. But, it is what it is. Story's going to be great regardless. But the Bloodline won, so it's Bloodline rules. So now they're stacking the deck against Cody. Let me tell you the best part about Mania Night 2 for me. The weather in Philly was incredible on Sunday. It was so good. It was just warm. You know, there was enough coolness to the air to where you didn't feel uncomfortable in the weather, but it was warm enough to where we could open up that glass in that suite like so many people seem to have wanted to do the first night and it not be unbearable. So that's what we did. Also, the suite had like TVs in there, right? For some reason, the staff that worked at Lincoln Financial did not think that it was the best idea for some reason. They thought it was a good idea to not have WrestleMania playing on the TVs, the TV screens in the suites, which I'm like, I guess maybe they didn't consider what I considered the second we got into the suite on night one and Mania started. Part of the great aspect of WWE, WrestleMania, their live events, any PLEs you go to is the presentation. The presentation matters. And part of that presentation is the show that you watch. But the other part of that presentation is what it is that you hear, not just entrances, but commentary. The commentary matters, man. And when you're that far from the ring, as we were in these suites, right? You can see the ring and you can see the action, but you can't interact with the action in the way that you can when you have a better vantage point and when you can hear the commentary. Certain things just lose a dimension of the storytelling when the commentary is not present. It's not present. So night one was cool, but night two was so much better because somebody got the word that it was a good idea to turn the TVs on. And so they turned those TVs on and every TV was set to Peacock. So you could sit in the suite, watch the show from the suite, take in the crowd. And mind you, we were right above the highest nosebleed seat, right? In these big suites with all this great seating, couches, you know, and all this stuff. So you could open the window and slap the head of the person at the top row. You know what I mean? Like we were that high up there. But the warmth of the weather, having those windows open, man, in Philly, so you feel and you hear the crowd energy. And then you had the TVs going, right? So you hear the music, you hear the announcers, the commentary during the matches. Man, it was incredible. And the concierge brought around the menus. So we got food service. The food service was not that great, but the fact that we had it, WrestleMania Night 2 was exactly what I wanted it to be. Just a bunch of dudes hanging out, watching WrestleMania in the best seats possible, enjoying each other's company, and watching the culmination of the greatest WrestleMania that I can remember. Cody winning was amazing. The energy from the crowd is palpable. You can feel it. It's not overstated when you hear a commentator or a wrestler giving an interview and they talk about the energy in the arena and how you feel it in your bones. There's nothing like it. There really isn't. I can only imagine what it's like being at the center of that, standing in the ring and feeling the energy of thousands, tens of thousands of people. I'm sure it is a feeling. It is a rush. It is an experience that is short of incredible. No short of incredible. Man, I had such a good time. I had such a good time. Leaving Philly was, it wasn't crappy, but you just knew that for some of us, including myself, because I don't know what the future may hold, that we may never have this experience again. So to do something like this, to experience the greatest WrestleMania, the way that we did, to see what we saw, to meet who we met, those memories I will carry with me for the rest of my life. My only hope is that I can replicate it, that I can do it again. I genuinely hope that these gentlemen who I feel like I can legitimately call my friends at this point, I've interacted with them so many times now outside of the podcast. You know, Donnie helped me a lot with getting this podcast started. His advice was, very much appreciated in the, certain things that I needed to know, that I wanted to know. He just helped me out a lot. And Ring Rust Radio in general, just as an inspiration for me to step into this space and to do what it is that I'm doing now. I just genuinely hope that we get to do it again. WrestleMania 42 is going to be in Louisiana. It's going to be in New Orleans. I want to go ahead and put this out there in the ethos that WrestleMania 42, we can possibly do it again. I don't know what that looks like right now, but I would love to go again. I would love to take my wife. There's great food in New Orleans, and that woman is all about some good food. So she is more than content to go just to eat the food. WrestleMania would be a nice thing to do on the side. But I would love for her to go to Mania too, because it's one of those things where you can tell someone about it and they may not even be interested for real, but you should still go. To experience an event of that magnitude is something that only people that go get to experience, and you'll be able to talk about it. It gives you frame of reference for a lot of other things that you see and do. So if you're listening to this podcast and it's WrestleMania season and you're as hype as I am, let somebody else know about this podcast. I am a genuine fan of this product. I love it. I love great storytelling. I love great character work. We are in a real renaissance period, in my opinion, in WWE. And the product has never been hotter. If you are one of the people who is going to WrestleMania this year and you come across this podcast, hit me up. Hit me up at the Lariat Lounge at gmail.com afterwards and tell me about your experience. Tell me about your experience at WrestleMania 41, how you enjoyed it. In fact, even if you didn't go, if you're going to be like me this year and you're on your couch eating some good food or hanging out with some friends and watching 41 and you like this podcast, hit me up, the Lariat Lounge at gmail.com. Tell me what you thought about WrestleMania 41. I will probably read some of them on one of the podcasts in the following week. So if you want your messages read, email me, the Lariat Lounge at gmail.com. Let's experience this together, man. This is a communal thing and we love wrestling. And if you love it as much as I do, then let's interact. Let's interact. Let's enjoy this together. This is a communal thing and we are a community. So I hope that if you're watching WrestleMania this weekend that you enjoy it. I certainly will enjoy it. So, have fun, man. Have fun, have fun, have fun. I'm Everson. This is the Lariat Lounge. Be careful on your way out.